So hearing it come from you is like, I felt like it taught me how to be a better father, a better neighbor. You know, my mom preaches a lot about these retreats, but entrepreneurship is the biggest retreat you'll ever experience in your life.
That's right.
So,
that's right. It's very spiritual. I mean, every day we out here walking on water.
the journey of knowing thyself begins in the cradle and ends in the grave. One way to capture those moments of ourself can be found in the shelf. Shelves have been around since the creation of ancient scrolls. My name is Dr. Walter Hidalgo, and I'm a father, teacher, world traveler, and coach. Join me as we explore together the stories of our shelves. This is Know Thy Shelf.
Watch this.
Peace,
you let me get warmed up.
You already know. Come on, we good. You family. Peace, beautiful family. This is Dr. Walter, and this is the Know Thy Shelf podcast. And this is episode number 31 of the catalog. I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm humbled. And if you're a first-time listener, the Know Thy Shelf podcast utilizes the metaphor of the shelf to extrapolate the self. We invite guests to come in to share something that comes out of them shelves. And before I introduce my guests today, I want to give a shout out to some folks that we're promoting and who I've partnered up with, including the goddess that's with me here today. If you're looking for coaching or speaking engagements, email us at knowthyshelftv@gmail.com. Also, our hats that, if you're not looking, if you're listening to us, shout out to my boy Emilio. He has his clothing line called Highly Living, which I highly recommend. So I got some hats on deck, like the one I got, including the one we got on display. So if you want that information, just email us at the same spot. And also, I want to give a big shout out to Valerio. I recently purchased their sunglasses. It's on their way. You know what I'm saying? They look pretty fly. They got watches, they got jewelry. But if you want any of those kind of accessories, I got the hookup. I got the 30% discount. Just use the promo code SHELF25 and you'll get that hookup, all right? The second shout out I want to give out is to, as we always do on the Know Thy Shelf podcast, is I like to shout out a group of people, a group of individuals. And today I want to give a big shout out to all the entrepreneurs, to all the young bosses. To anyone who kind of like stepped out of their comfort zone and made a decision in their life that is, I feel, an intersectionality between your purpose in this life and solidifying yourself before you go meet our Creator, because the Creator pushes us to recreate all day, every day. Today I have a guest that reflects that. I love this person. I've known her for a minute and I respect her. It's Monica Grant.
What up? What's
good?
How you feeling, man?
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here. This is a blessing.
I know it's when it's hard to get someone in the schedule when they're on that entrepreneurship vibe, because you're a hustler. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny because when I talk to people, it's like, oh, when are you available? After work? And I'm like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what's work and what do you define as work, et cetera, et cetera. So, Monica, I'm happy you're here. And
same.
I think the best way to, as I always do, is we got to contextualize ourselves. I've known you for a while.
Yes.
I met you through my daughter's mom.
Uh-huh.
Shout out to Alba. Love you.
Alba, yeah.
Shout out to my daughter,
Yeah.
Genesis. Love you.
Love you.
And I kind of already knew what time it was because even though I'm not with my daughter's mom, I love her and respect her. That's real talk, family, right? Because she had and continues to have this drive for justice and community.
Yes.
So anybody that I ever met and continue to meet through my daughter's mom's circle, I already know what time it is.
She's a filter.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she's the one that, shout out to all my Afro-Dominicanas.
Yeah.
That's how she identifies herself as. And big up to the strong woman out there. And I see that in you.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Where does that come from? You know what? Well, this ain't my first walk on this planet. And honestly, I can think of times when I was a kid, and it's funny, there's a story of when me and Chris first moved down south, when we first moved from Michigan to South Carolina, this boy was trying to make me his girlfriend. And he had brought all his sisters and all his female cousins, and they were trying to gang up on me. And here I am, I'm probably like 7 years old, and I'm like, no, you don't control me. And like I was bad at, I was a bad female then, and like Chris was just in the back, like she make her own decisions, and he's like that now.
Shout out to Chris. Yeah.
But it was like me really standing on my own too for a very long time, and so like as early as I can remember, I've just been this old soul. And it's like I'm gonna do this, I'm here to do that, I'm not messing with these people, and I can only think that is because I've been here before, and I came here with a mission. And very intentional on, I'm not gonna mess it up this time because I think I done messed it up before. Yeah. And so this time around, I gotta get it right.
Amen.
I gotta get it right.
Mo, give us your background. Where you from? And what got you to where you are here. So give us a little profile. For sure.
So that's always a difficult question of where I'm from because just most of the life has been just moving around. Grandma from Alabama, she was a part of the Great Migration.
Shout out to the BAM.
All day. She moved to Michigan where she met my grandfather, who was he was from Arkansas, Little Rock. So family part of that Great Migration, coming to the Detroit area to work, Michigan to work. So I come from a working background. My mother's generation was born in Michigan. By the time I was born, Detroit was becoming Detroit. Drug infested, the automobiles, plants leaving out. We were in Ann Arbor, so if somebody listening from Detroit, they were like, well, Detroit ain't Ann Arbor, it's not the same thing. But in general, that area was becoming, drug infested. Sure. And it was like, I had a lot of uncles in the drug game. And so my mother made a decision and it wasn't working out with my father at the time, so my mother made a decision to move us down south. So in the middle of the night, we're in a U-Haul, me, my mom, Chris, in a U-Haul going down to North Augusta, South Carolina. Yep. And so from that age, I was probably about 5 at the time. From that time period, I knew that I wasn't from South Carolina. I'm from Michigan, even though I'd only spent just my first few years there. Right. And so here I am in this new world, and it's like, well, I got to stand on my own 2 feet because I don't know these people, and I'm just making my way. And spent a lot of time in South Carolina. I graduated there. Ended up going to Stillman College in Alabama where my grandmother is. They gave me a scholarship.
Well, you went 360.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you know what? It's funny because the more I learn about my ancestry, and my dad will tell me things like, so I just found out that my great grandfather used to live about a 15-minute walk from me in Harlem. Wow. Yeah, he was there during the Harlem Renaissance. Yeah.
Shout out to Harlem. Shout out to Harlem. You know what I mean? Shout out to Grandma. Yeah, that's deep.
And so what I'm seeing, and that's why like now I have to just say I came here with a mission. Like before, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have said, because I'm smart and I'm doing all these things and I'm I would take credit for it. Like no, this is the creator. This has nothing to do with me. Because even in places where I used to live, I've had ancestors there. Like my blood has already been there. And so like it was just me returning to catch the vibe, catch the energy, gain what I needed to gain, maybe get some downloads, get some information, and then move on to the next spot. Because everywhere that I've been, my ancestors have been there.
Facts. Yeah. And so talk to me about growing up in these different spaces and places, right? Because, now the game has changed. People are shifting around and moving around. I feel like we talk a lot about migration and immigration, but we don't talk a lot about internal displacement. You know, like your grandparents were forced, part of that migration because of, the South's history and background, you know, and I feel like we have a lot in common because we have that something, that drive from our grandparents that, we talk about DNA, but there's this spiritual DNA that is transferred over to us from our ancestors. You mentioned ancestors, and I feel like a lot of what drives me is like a lot of the work that my Papatino did, who was murdered. He was one of the 250,000 indigenous Mayan that were killed, that was speaking up, with what was going on there, and from there resulting in a book called Nunca Más, No More.
Yeah, I heard that. It was
documented of what was happening. It was kidnappings and extortion, and was so many things to silence people. But then comes my mom, who became this voice, and then me, I became this other voice, and here you're becoming this voice.
Right.
Talk to me about that voice. Talk to me about your message, overall message, because you're part of the Young Boss Media. I'm part of it.
Yes.
That's what drives this.
Yes.
Talk to me about Young Boss. Talk to me about how your ancestors influenced you to start Young Boss.
For sure. So just hitting on like just the family lineage, when you look at other countries, families enter into industries. The child is expected to take over the industry that their parents are in. If your parents they own a rice field, you're going to be in the rice business. If your parents are in the bamboo business, you're going to be a part of the bamboo business. Because the information is translated and passed down through the DNA. That's been studied, right? And so then it's like just the information. It's easier to have a conversation about bamboo than your child wanting to be a doctor. Because then it's like, well, we don't know about that. It's like we have this information. We actually have this market lockdown. We have these resources, and we can help you be prosperous. And so the DNA naturally does that, right? And so my father is an actor. And so when he was 29, it's funny because religion and spirituality kind of flow through my veins as well. Of just, in the South, like my grandmother is a strict Pentecostal woman, But my father, and that's my grandmother on my mother's side, my father grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And so after the world didn't end at a certain point, because they were saying the world's going to end, after the world didn't end at a certain point, he was just like, he was like, well, hold on, like, so we're just going to ignore that the world didn't end? Like, hold on. And so he started doing his research and eventually left the temple, and they exiled him. And so in his later 20s, he started studying acting because that was his passion. That's what he wanted to do with his life. And so he had me in his 30s. So I grew up knowing all my life, my father's an actor. He does theater. He has some extra roles, in different movies. He's a SAG actor. He just finished his PhD. Shout out to Dad, Dr. Grant.
Shout out to Dad.
Yeah. He just finished his PhD in film. It's Caribbean Afrocentric film.
What?
Yeah.
Man, that is amazing.
Yeah. So that is dope.
And you're ahead of him.
Yeah.
Technically, I'm below, but
you know what?
Theoretical and practical coming together.
And and part of it is because I always heard him say, like, if I could go back, I would do more behind the scenes. Because as an actor, like, you get a script and you're waiting for somebody to call you back. But when you're making the scripts, when you're the director, you're the producer, you always have whatever you want going on.
Right.
And so I started out like that. I started out as my mother put me into piano lessons when I was 7. So I've always been performing arts, like as a kid, forever. I've always been doing something artistic, whether it's poetry, whether it's performing, playing the clarinet, the saxophone. I was in the marching band at school, right? And so all of these things were, my mom keeping me busy, but then also, that's how I developed self-esteem, my community, scholarships, money, income, learning how to deal with people, right? So what was already in my DNA began to develop as like a craft, and like this is actually something that I can sustain myself with, And so I went to college for business, and because I was like, some people are getting rich. How are they getting rich and other people are staying poor? And so I even went to like 3 different colleges, and I still graduated in 4 years studying business. Like, that's how motivated I was. Because, at that time, like, you had to graduate in 4 years to be considered successful. Like, that's a whole bunch of bull that we bought. But I bought it.
That's a whole other combo.
That's a whole other combo. But I bought it, and I was like, I got to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah.
But I studied business because I knew that no matter what I can create, I'm a creator. You know, and like it feels good to create. It feels good when I play music. It feels good when I perform. And so I don't necessarily need to study that. I want to study how to make the money from my creation. You know, and so it's kind of always been one of the so there's 3 rivers in my life: art, business, and activism.
Sounds like the Trinity.
Yeah,
theological.
Yeah. You know, and like they come together with Young Boss Media.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you look at Young Boss Media, we have the community, business, and politics, right? And so it's all for me. That's just who I am. Like, I'm gonna be in the streets talking to my people, but I'm gonna be talking about this money too. Where the money at?
Yeah, you know, we talk. Yeah, I think that's so important because I try not to give the impression that I'm sounding selfish. Because I feel like money is one of those, like you're walking on eggshells conversation. And I think a lot of times we forget, for example, that when Dr. King inspired us to march, it was because he was organizing those garbage workers. It was an economic strike, right? And we forget that we could march and distill our ideologies, our theologies, or whatever ologies, but if we don't got the economic foundation, I mean, we talk about defunding the police. We talk about systemic racism. Let's take, we know the racism part, but then there's the system part.
Right.
And what pushes the system is the money. Let's be real.
Yes.
If you don't got the funds, we can't make change. We can't do this. This thing can't operate. What does, for me, I've been always preaching that concept of spiritual economic empowerment. And I think we're on that page. What does it mean to have economic empowerment in the community?
So I'll tell you how I got there, because I agree with you completely. As an organizer, when I would tell people like, yo, I study business, people would almost laugh. Like, oh, you're a capitalist. Or, you know, like they wouldn't even want to hear any of my ideas about community development, because also a lot of these movements aren't ran by us.
That's a fact.
You know, so like let's be very honest. Like a lot of these movements are not ran by us, and so when I'm on the ground, I'm knocking on doors and I'm saying, yo, like this is what, you know, Brother Smith is telling me. This is what the sister is telling me. They don't care, because the ultimate goal of this campaign might be to get some legislation passed years down the line, but they're not seeing what I'm seeing on the doors, right? And so once I realized like the whole, you're a capitalist, and that's how they frame you, it's just to dismiss you. Right? Once I realized that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to be the crazy one. I'm gonna have to be the crazy one and really bang on the heads, because like at the end of the day, if we're not talking about money, because I've knocked on doors all across this country with the same union that Martin Luther King was organized with. Actually, I've knocked on doors throughout this entire country. If I see a Confederate flag, I'm still knocking on your door. Hey Bob, you're on my list. I need to talk to you. Hey Monica, come on in. You know, I've talked to so many people across this country, and people want to know about their money. Because at the end of the day, if they're not surviving, they can't feed their kids, nothing else matters. The whole, you know, you can be racist, you can not like other people, but at the end of the day, what affects you most? What you eating for dinner tonight?
You know, this is why intergenerational wealth and empowerment and passing it along to our generation. We were talking, you know, on our way up here about how the game has changed, right? So let's unpackage this a little bit. First of all, how were you? One of the main questions I've been asking a lot of people is this theme of COVID and faith, right? Because you're a spiritual person. How were you? How did you operate and navigate during these interesting times that we're somewhat still going through as we speak?
For sure. So as I told you coming up here, like I had been planning for the next economic collapse since 2008, because that's when I graduated college, 2008. When I drove from Delaware State, that's where I graduated, back to my mother's house in South Carolina, because I could not find a job. I gotta move back to my mama's house. Oh my God! When I'm driving back, I'm seeing all this construction, and I'm like, some people got money. Some people got money. I just don't have it. But some people got money. I'm broke, but not everybody is broke. I couldn't find a job. I went through depression, just like you were talking about. And I said, then I was like, yo, I gotta figure this out, because I don't ever want to be back here. I don't ever want to feel the way I felt. I don't ever want to feel trapped again. I don't ever want to be in a position where I just don't know what's going on. You know, and so from 2008 until now, so what we're talking about, 12 years? I've been building it. I've been doing the research. I've been reading the books. I've been studying the people. And so when it finally came back around, there have been, YouTubers and influencers and also in different areas, right? So there's like the financial people that are saying like the collapse is coming, the dollar is worthless, get out as soon as possible. But then there's also like spiritual influencers that are saying like, yo, check out the cosmos. Like there's a major shift happening. We're going into the age of Aquarius. There's a major shift happening. I don't know what's going to be, but it's happening. And so when it finally happened, it was like, oh crap, it's here. It's really here. I'm going to live through this. Oh, wow. And so I was really like taken aback because like we read about stuff. We read about these things, but never in my life would I think I would actually live through this.
Right.
And then be young enough to do something. Because we could be sitting here and be 80 years old right now and be in a different situation.
Yep.
But we're young enough to actually do something.
It's bugged out because I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, what would a Walter look like if he was still a freshman in college? What would a Walter look like if he was still living with X person and unemployed? Yo, it's so many scenarios.
So I have so many of these conversations. So now it's just like when I think about each and everything that we experience, now it's just like we've been building up to this. Like we've been doing our push-ups, we've been doing our jumping jacks, we've been doing our squats. We've been and think about, because you went through the Great Recession just like I did. How we value money, how we value relationships have all shifted versus what was sold to us. Because what was sold to us was be in the middle class, wear the suit, be in the office, have the nice job, have the nice family, have the dog. Yeah. So all of that shifted. That was like the first shift, with the Great Recession. So I think a big part of the millennials, us millennials, just really looked at money differently. We looked at business differently. So by the time this came, it was like, and I heard from a lot of people, it's like, yo, I felt like I've been preparing this for a long time.
And then, so much, it was, I'm glad you mentioned 2012, 2008, numbers and history is so important for me because I feel like I really do believe things don't happen on accident. There's a purpose, there's something driving. Like God has this plan that's beyond our comprehension and God's always operating some way in there, but allowing us to figuring it out. Yeah. Because, you're referring to the market crash. Around that time, I was studying my doctorate too. I started transitioning into studying around 2010, and then 12 hits. We also started to see a decline of people leaving the church. Some approximate about 40 million young adults from different faiths left. But there was this sort of resurrection of justice kind of started to kind of come out, like, because social media was really rising in 2008 and 9. We started to see a lot of visuals, a lot of exposure. You know what I mean? It was a very interesting time that I always feel like this is the continuing evolution of the spiritual re-evolution that's moving in our world and our time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And this to me was just another moment of what will continue to be some very interesting things moving forward. Because 2012, 2012 in the Mayan calendar for me really was the basis of a lot of my research and work that pushed me to speak to a lot of spiritual and religious leaders from around the world. And for me, that's why I'm not surprised. It's just that, wow, I'm alive, I'm living it, and I'm grateful to God that I'm alive. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm in the middle. I'm not old, and I'm not young. Yeah. I'm like right there, and I'm like, yo, I can still make it happen, and I feel like it's an overburden because it's a purpose and mission.
That's right.
What does purpose mean for you?
So somebody asked me what motivates me, and I was just being honest. I was like, I don't want to keep coming here to repeat lessons. Like I'm not. I want to figure out what's the next level of being in the physical. I don't want to be that spirit that has to keep coming back to learn that lesson. Like, what's next? What's next to this experience? Because my spirit is infinite. I'm gonna be somewhere forever. So what's next? So my purpose here is I don't think any of us were put here to be a drainage, to be a negative force on the planet, or for that just to be it. Like in science, the positive and negatives have to exist, right? But I don't believe that you have to always be that. Like there can be, you can switch, right? I just want most of my life to be extremely positive. And I know that during this time when we have a political system that is extremely negative, it's actually very easy to be positive. You feel me? Because everything has to balance. Right. Everything has to balance. And so my focus is on, one, where can I find like that positive energy and like really ride that wave? Because I got things to do on this planet. You know, when I think of like one of my favorite people to read about as kids, Mansa Musa. You know, and not because he was rich, like he was extremely wealthy, but he gave it all away, like it was nothing. Like that's how I view, like, and that's why, yes, I'm a capitalist. I want my money. Word. If I'm here breathing and you're benefiting from it and you're not giving it back to my people, I got a problem with this.
Speak on it.
I got a big problem with it because everything I do is mine first. Amen. You know, and like we're used to giving everything away, and then will you please get some of it back? Can I please get a tax return? It's like, no. So yes, I am a capitalist. I want to capitalize off of my life first so that I can determine where it goes, right? But like I'm more like a Mansa Musa way. I want to be able to give it out, and I want to be able to make sure that I'm leaving institutions behind that live beyond me. So like even with Young Boss Media, like it's your show. You run it how you want to run it, because if it becomes my show and I get kicked off, or they Malcolm X me, you're gonna be like, oh, Poe Monica, that was so nice what she did with Young Boss Media. I'm gonna go back to my regular life.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
But when it's your program and you have ownership over what you're doing, you're gonna be like, yo, we're gonna do this for Monica and keep going.
Facts.
You feel me?
And I feel like a lot of successful people, I mentioned them before, shout out to Dame Dash.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the like moguls and entrepreneurs. Jay Prince. Many people from the culture that you just look at and they really kind of took that initiative and ran with it, and you see where they are now. Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, you're an author too.
Yes. I write a little bit.
You're a little bit and a lot and really dope. And you're spitting too, so don't sleep. Hip hop, don't sleep. We part of this culture. We are the culture.
All day.
You have written multiple books. We have one that just recently came out.
Yes.
Talk to me about it.
Mind your business and prosper.
Woo.
That's enough right there. Mind your business and prosper.
I love it when there's books that, you still can't judge a book by its cover. Go out and read it and cop that.
Yeah.
But it's just that title that's like, I know exactly where you're talking about. Go for it.
So it was actually, this is a COVID-19 project. Leading up to COVID-19, I knew that 2020 was going to be a few things, right? Because even in the start of Young Boss Media, I knew that 2020 I wanted to have a conference. I want to have the Young Boss Media conference. Shout out to the Mind Your Business and Prosper conference coming up soon. And I knew that I was going to have to release, my book, the biographical book, because before then I had did a poetry book, I had did an organizing book, how to organize your block. That's about community organizing, because Black folks need to know how to organize. Facts. So I laid it out. Here are the steps. I wrote another book, Rules for a Young Boss, which is kind of the predecessor, but I didn't have all the experience that I have now to really release Mind Your Business and Prosper. So a sister of mine, Asia Nasir, she's actually going to be on the panel for the authors panel. Yeah. She was doing a master class on authorship. And I was like, let me take that. And so going through her class, it was like, I started framing it, the marketing, who I wanted to reach out to, and I sat down and really wrote out 13 chapters of being. Right? And so like the being of being forgiving, being free, being creative, being disciplined. And the first part of each chapter is like my experience with this topic, and then I break it down into like, what does this really mean? And then the third step is like an action step, right? So one of the so I'll give you an example. So one of the issues I talk about is like being on time. Like being on time is so important. It's so important. And at first, like even like, and I had experience in Young Boss Media, like I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm coming. But what I realized is that like that's self-sabotage. Like if you're not even on time for your stuff, but you want to be Monica, you want to be the next Oprah, but you're not even on time for your meeting. Like really, you want people to take you seriously? Really? Yeah. You ain't got no integrity in your own word. And so being out here and like you don't even believe yourself How can you want people to believe in you and you don't even believe yourself?
You know what? I gotta say this again because I swear I'm putting it into the atmosphere that one day I'm gonna interview the God Gary Vee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because God talks about this all the time. That I feel like, and we've talked about this. You've interviewed me. You know what I mean? Like this journey of entrepreneurship is gonna show you what you're made out of. Yo.
Facts.
It's gonna expose you. Who cares about every? I'm trying not to tear up because I know the struggle. You feel me? I know the struggle, family, of entrepreneurship. So hearing it come from you is like, I felt like it taught me how to be a better father, a better neighbor. You know, my mom preaches a lot about these retreats, but entrepreneurship is the biggest retreat you'll ever experience in your life.
That's right.
So,
that's right. It's very spiritual. I mean, every day we out here walking on water. It's very spiritual because you don't know what the like you have a vision, you have faith, but you don't know what doors gonna open up for you. Right. And a lot of times the doors that open up for you never saw. You never saw. Like we knocking on doors that will never open for us, but that one over there in the corner be like, oh snap! All right, feel good. Let me walk over there then. And but if you had not taken that walk, you would have never known what was out there.
Someone told me that the richest place in the world is a cemetery.
Because all those ideas, all those thoughts, all those
was
dreams.
it you that told me that?
No,
somebody told me.
No,
this,
that phrase goes around, but it's real.
And I think that's when we talk about purpose and having meaning in our life, because it makes us feel like, because you know what, I knew already, like I just don't like the idea of. Dame Dash again said it, and that's the part that really went ding for me, was like, I don't want to work for somebody that I'm smarter than.
Yeah.
And that's why we promote entrepreneurship, because to the extent that I'm going to drop these jewels, but you got to polish that diamond yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like, an entrepreneur is also a coach. It's a leader. For yourself first, because if you're not operating that way first, then it's going to trickle down with the rest of your team. Like, you are the people got to believe in you first, let alone because a lot of people don't believe in themselves. So give them something to believe. You know what I mean?
Not believe in themselves. So and like that's the biggest thing. It's like and the beauty of COVID-19 is that you don't need degrees no more. Like you don't like if you can learn how to code from these free programs, if you sit down and learn how to code, you can build a business with no degree. You know, but it's like you got to lose the self-esteem issues of I need a degree, I need somebody to co-sign me, I need this. No, you just need to work your butt off. Work. You have to work and believe and have faith. You have to do that part. And so that's like the silver lining of COVID-19 is like nobody knows what's going on. So the person that is focused and driven can actually build a direct path to success so quickly. Because everybody else is like running around like, what do I do? What do I do? The person that knows what to do will win. And so you have to be a person of your word. You have to be a leader. You have to show up on time. You have to be a person that's of integrity and is not trying to cheat everybody. Because at the end of the day, if you're a leader, people will gravitate to you in a time of chaos. Just because Monica look like she knows what she's doing, so maybe I'll just come work with her. Cause she look like she knows what she's doing. And sometimes I don't know. I don't always know what I'm doing.
Right.
But I know that I'm going to do it.
That's right.
I know that, like, all right, if I'm talking to you about something, you better believe it's already in the works. I don't even open my mouth unless like there's pieces of the leg moving forward and saying like, all right, so we doing this. I'm not going to open my mouth just to dream or visualize. I have a piece of paper for that. You know, I write down my thoughts and I write down my ideas and I do the research and I Google and I read the books. So by the time it comes out of my mouth, I've already made the contacts. Or I'm reaching out to you because, hey, I have an idea. I need this from you. Can we work together on this? I'll give you a percentage. Like, can we work this out? And so it's like you have to be a leader of yourself in order for people to believe in you. But do you believe in yourself?
Yes. Yeah.
And a degree don't give you that. Like the work to get the degree is what can give you that. But the actual piece of paper means nothing unless you believe in yourself.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So, yes, I want to switch gears just for a little bit. Yep, exactly. Let's switch it up real quick because I want to talk and get your thoughts on, speaking on your legs and moving and finding your voice. There's been a lot of people on the streets, a lot of legs on the streets, protests happening for so many reasons that, I just want to get your thoughts on that. Black Lives Matter, these reckless shootings that are happening. I mean, we're starting to see a lot of things. Obviously we understand that this is what happens when, statistically, I mean, criminology speaking, when it gets warmer, violence kind of goes up. But let's not put under the rug COVID, the shootings of black men and women and people of color. These terms I hate.
Transgender.
So and transgender too. Facts too. What are your thoughts on that? So
we are going through a massive shift just in everything is changing, everything, and so in our personal lives, like when we're changing, we're moving from one grade to the next, when we're elevating, we all personally go through like this friction period, of trying to make it to the next phase. Whether you're going from being single to being in a relationship and you're having to learn your partner, there's always friction going to the next stage. So now imagine the world is going through another stage in life. All of us. No one is exempt from this. You 99, you are a part of this shift. Everybody is going through this massive shift. And so what we see on the ground, on kind of like just the bodies on the street, that's a part of it, right? And if you look at any of the conspiracy theories back in the day when we were watching, we predicted that, this was going to be a part of it, the violence, because people they're unsure of their future. They don't know where their next meal going to come from. Unemployment got stopped. Prices of food is going up. It's skyrocketing. Whether there's a real food shortage or not, it feels like one. And it's already been a food shortage and a food desert in many black and brown communities. So now the crunch is really tighter. On top of this, we do have a police state. We have these ex-military war veterans coming to be the police officers to protect the neighborhood. I'm doing the air quotes. Doing the air quotes. And so there's all these different factors coming into play. And it's like a gumbo, like how the pieces of the gumbo might not, when you first put it in, it doesn't make sense, but then you let it sit for a couple hours and it's a whole different soup. And so now we're dealing with the soup of anger, depression, people off their medication, people, afraid of being addicted. And so it's just so much pressure. And one thing that this country has, and it just globally, nobody cares about mental health. Nobody cares about mental health. Because we can talk about like the human rights violations of police officers in America and across the world. We can talk about female genital mutilation. We can talk about war. We can talk about all these different things. But once we get rid of the criminals, who actually takes care of the people?
Right.
I remember when they were dropping bombs on Iraq, and it's like, well, we have to be really fearful and careful of when these babies grow up and they're 18, 19 years old and they're pissed off at America. That's real. Like the hate you gave little infants F's everybody. Thug life. And so what we're seeing is kids growing up and saying, yo, this system has never worked for our people and I'm not here to buy this dream anymore. So what do I think of it? I think that everything is right on time. It's not really supposed to be different. Right. It's actually right where it's supposed to be because so many people have been oppressed, so many people have been abused, violated, or told that they're supreme, told that this group was, their enemy. So like all these things are colliding. And I've been in the movement for 14, 15 years now. And it's interesting that during the COVID-19, I've actually was so busy doing different interviews that it was hard for me to get out to a lot of the marches. But when I look and I see 40 million people unemployed and they're out at the marches, I'm like, I've been paying my dues. Y'all good. Y'all don't need me. Word. Y'all don't need me. Word. But also when I think about it, it's like they're new activists. There's new. It's now a new playing field of activism. And then we're dealing with Antifa out there. We're dealing with, and I've always seen like these kids out there that like aren't with the movement, they're like throwing trash cans, and that's always existed. But now it's just like when I started to see Minnesota after George Floyd, I knew off the bat, I was like, all them burnings on us.
Oh,
and here I'm arguing with people like, no, we doing that. That's black people taking back their community. It's like, no. I've been in this game a long time. That ain't us. That's not us.
There's always been people sabotaging the movement that exists at all levels. I'm talking about physical, psychological, spiritual, emotional.
It always happens. It always exists.
Mo, where can people find you? What's the information where they can reach you and get all the good stuff and be a part of our movement of the Young Boss?
That's right. Yo, go to youngbossmedia.com. Check out everything that we do. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Young Boss Media. If you want to network with me and do business with me, the best place is LinkedIn, Monica Segmet. Please, if you come into my inbox, let's talk business. I only want to talk business. That's what I do. That's how we make sure that this company can stay afloat.
Speak on it.
We are business people. I know life is going through the shift. I get it, but we have to talk about business so that we can make sure that our families can eat another day, and also we can build generational wealth. And all to the men, don't come in my inbox saying hello, beautiful. I know I'm beautiful. I get it, but you the first ones I'm gonna tell. Like, you need to sign up for this link. You need to join my company.
You literally got the phone back. Hi, question to me. You're like, oh, here's the link.
Here's the link.
Go directly there. Not here. Go bypass and go right there.
You want to talk to me? Yep, make the investment.
Yo, Queen, listen. I love you.
Love you too.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And we're making moves, man. We're going to make this happen because the Know That Shelf is under the Young Boss Media banner. We are entrepreneurs by our own right, and we're doing this together as a community. And as we always do in the Know That Shelf podcast, we invite people to share something that comes out of their shelf. What you got for us today?
Well, I brought my book.
Oh, the book, specific. So talk the book. Well, we already talked about the book. That's right. So this is coming out of your shelf. Available where?
So it's on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, go to youngbossmedia.com.
Okay, dope. Yeah. So definitely check that out. And if you want more information, check out the website. So I think this is a good way to segue to our last piece, which is we always end with a quote.
Okay.
And I think this speaks to us.
Okay.
And this quote is from Thomas Edison. And it reads as such: I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Amen.
Peace, family. Young Boss.
That's right. This is great, man. This is great.